For 30 years, one man held the keys to 15 million living rooms every single night. His name was Johnny Carson, and The Tonight Show wasn't just television.
I was 36 years old, taking my place as host of America's most popular late-night program, The Tonight Show.
It was a kingdom. But what happens when a celebrity crosses the unspoken rules of that kingdom? They thought fame made them untouchable. They were wrong. Behind Johnny Carson's million-dollar smile and effortless charm,
The guy who did that night, and his name was Johnny Carson. Here's this guy who he just seems like a nice man behind the desk having fun with some friends.
lurked a power few dared to challenge. A power that could erase careers with a single phone call. 15 million viewers tuned in every night. But for 7 celebrities, that golden stage became a trapdoor to permanent exile. What did it take to earn Carson's wrath? How far could one misstep really go in a kingdom ruled by silence, charm, and absolute authority? Tonight, we pull back the curtain on Hollywood's most ruthless gatekeeper, the man who smiled while destroying careers,
Just so damn humiliating.
and the cautionary tales that prove even legends had to play by his rules. Number 1. Wayne Newton.
Now here's another big leaguer, Wayne Newton.
Wayne Newton thought he was untouchable. The man owned half of Las Vegas, his face plastered across the Strip's brightest marquees, his pockets overflowing with casino money. But Johnny Carson's writers had other plans, and one joke in particular cut straight to Newton's carefully manicured ego. Las Vegas is installing brighter stage lights because Wayne Newton's hair needs photosynthesis. The audience erupted. Newton seethed. See? This wasn't just about vanity, though Newton had plenty of that. Every Carson punchline chipped away at the brand Newton had spent millions building.
Wayne Newton has been billed as one of the highest paid nightclub performers.
The Aladdin hotel deal, the endorsement contracts, the carefully constructed image of Vegas royalty,
52-acre ranch estate outside Vegas and half ownership in the Aladdin Hotel and Casino.
all of it depended on respect. And Carson's monologue was systematically dismantling it, night after night after night. So Newton did what any rational human being would do. He completely lost his mind. Security footage from 1980 captured the moment Newton's career died. He stormed NBC's Burbank facility like a man possessed.
I jumped in a car and I drove over to NBC, Burbank, and I walked into his office.
Silk shirt unbuttoned to mid-chest, because apparently that's how you assert dominance. Fists clenched so tight, his knuckles went white. Reception tried to stop him. He pushed right past. Staff scattered like cockroaches when the lights flip on. And then Wayne Newton burst through Johnny Carson's office door during pre-show preparations, stood over that legendary desk, and delivered the threat that would haunt him forever. "These jokes about me will stop now, or I'll kick your ass." The room went silent. Carson didn't flinch, didn't stand, didn't raise his voice.
Johnny never got up, even from his desk. And I told him what my intentions were. And he wouldn't get up. And so I smacked him.
He simply reached for his phone with the kind of calm that's infinitely more terrifying than rage, and said 5 words that sealed Newton's fate. "Security, please remove Mr. Newton from the premises. Permanently." Within the hour, Newton's photograph appeared in every security booth across NBC, red stamped with instructions that might as well have been carved in stone. No access under any circumstances. That evening's monologue eliminated every Newton reference, not because Carson felt threatened, but because Carson never rewarded threats with attention. He explained it to producer Fred de Cordova with chilling simplicity. "Nobody threatens me in my own house. Nobody." The message traveled through Hollywood faster than wildfire through dry brush. Physical intimidation, meant career suicide, and Newton had just committed it in front of witnesses.
I smacked him open-handed, because I was so fed up with it.
Right.
And, his excuse was such a lame excuse.
But here's where it gets truly devastating. Newton tried to fix it. He sent elaborate gift baskets to Carson's Beverly Hills mansion, each one more desperate than the last. Every single package came back unopened. When Newton finally worked up the courage to approach Carson at the 1986 Emmy Awards, hoping 6 years might have softened the ban, Johnny simply turned his back, champagne glass in hand, and walked away without a word. That moment, that public humiliation in front of Hollywood's elite, communicated everything Newton needed to know. Tonight show writer Pat McCormick later summed it up perfectly. You can recover from bombing on the show. You can recover from almost anything in this business. But threatening Johnny? That was professional suicide. The irony cuts deep. Newton's attempt to protect his image created a narrative far more damaging than any monologue joke ever could. As his Vegas star continued rising,
Wayne Newton is a legend, icon, and American patriot. He's also Mr. Las Vegas.
that permanent Tonight Show blacklist cast a shadow over every achievement, a constant reminder that there was one door in America that remained forever closed. Carson never spoke publicly about the ban, and that silence proved more devastating than any verbal assault could have been. In Hollywood, the worst punishment isn't being talked about. It's being erased completely. Number 2, Zase Gabor. But if you think physical threats were the only way to earn Carson's eternal wrath, let me introduce you to Zsa Gabor and the incident that turned The Tonight Show into a literal petting zoo nightmare. Gabor floated onto set in 1968, all charm and European elegance.
Zaza, you look so beautiful. How do you do it? How do you do it?
With one tiny detail nobody had approved: a Shih Tzu tucked under her diamond-draped arm. Carson had a strict no-surprise animals policy for exactly the reason that was about to unfold. The dog, initially calm, spotted Ed McMahon's sandwich during commercial break and made its move. "Darling, come back to Mama," Gabor called out, but that dog was on a mission. It devoured McMahon's lunch, scattering lettuce across the polished floor like confetti at a disaster wedding. Carson watched, tight-lipped, as crew members scrambled. When cameras returned, he maintained that legendary composure even as the dog jumped on his lap, leaving muddy paw prints all over his immaculate suit. "Your little friend is quite the performer," Carson quipped, the audience howling with laughter. Gabor, completely missing the tension radiating from Carson's frozen smile, replied, "He loves you, Johnny. I shall bring him every time." That's when Carson's smile truly froze. And backstage after the show, he absolutely exploded. "This isn't a petting zoo. Next time she brings livestock, she's banned." But Zsa Gabor, bless her heart, didn't take hints well. 2 months later, she arrived with a Persian cat hidden in her purse, thinking apparently that felines were somehow different than canines in Carson's animal prohibition. Midway through the interview, she revealed her surprise. The cat, stressed and angry, did what stressed and angry cats do. It hissed, scratched Carson's hand hard enough to draw blood, and then urinated directly on the iconic desk that had been with Carson since his New York days. Blood visible on his palm, Carson cut to commercial.
You're all sobered up. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
When they returned, Gabor sat alone. "Miss Gabor has left to tend to her pet," Carson explained smoothly, but his decision was already final. Gabor never received another invitation, not one, despite her publicist's increasingly desperate attempts. Carson issued a studio-wide memo that might as well have been titled, "How to Never Work in This Town Again." No uninvited animals, no exceptions, No Zaza Gabor. What viewers didn't witness was Carson's backstage reaction. Makeup artist Gina Roberts remembered it vividly. Johnny never cursed on air, but backstage after that cat incident, that desk had been with him since New York. He treasured it. When that cat did its business, I heard words I didn't know Johnny knew. NBC's prop masters spent 3 days extracting the smell from the desk's wood grain. 3 days. Producers calculated the total cost. 1 ruined suit jacket, extensive desk restoration, and the complete destruction of Carson's goodwill toward Gabor. Her publicist launched a 6-month campaign to restore booking status, sending written apologies, offering to replace furniture, even sending a gold-plated desk pin. Carson's response arrived via NBC's legal department, cold and professional. Mr. Carson appreciates Ms. Gabor's interest in returning to The Tonight Show. Unfortunately, we maintain a strict policy regarding surprise animals. This policy is non-negotiable. The formal language masked Carson's actual words to producers. "I'd rather interview a cactus. At least it would stay put." The ban entered Tonight Show lore. Doc Severinsen's band created a running joke where they'd play 3 notes of "Here, Kitty, Kitty" whenever Gabor appeared in tabloids, and Carson would grin and mime wiping his desk. That inside joke continued for nearly a decade, a constant reminder that some mistakes are simply unforgivable. Number 3. Buddy Hackett.
Buddy Hackett is here again, and if there's anybody funnier in the world than Buddy Hackett when he is cooking, I don't know who it is.
Now, if bringing unauthorized animals seems bad, wait until you hear about Buddy Hackett and the night he nearly cost NBC its broadcast license. Hackett's late-night appearances had always pushed boundaries. That was his thing, the line between edgy and inappropriate, and Carson usually appreciated the risk. But Hackett's 1976 visit wasn't about pushing boundaries.
First guest is a good friend, and I've been laughing at Buddy Hackett for 25 or 30 years. Would you welcome, please, Mr. Buddy Hackett?
It was about obliterating them completely. Hackett arrived 3 sheets to the wind, slurring slightly during pre-show makeup. Carson, sensing trouble with the instinct of a man who'd seen everything, whispered to producers, "Keep his segment tight." That warning proved prophetic, but nowhere near sufficient. Hackett started innocently enough, discussing his Vegas residency, the usual show business talk. Then, without warning, without any indication this train was about to derail, he launched into a sailor joke so explicitly graphic.
I'm a year older than you. You 47?
Yeah.
I'm 48. I'll be 49 in August. And if I get to another August after that, I'll be 50.
Yeah.
So for 2 months, you make me a liar.
That the control booth scrambled for the delay button. Before they could react, Hackett delivered 3 punchlines that threatened NBC's broadcast license, each one worse than the last. "Jesus Christ," the floor director muttered, which honestly was probably the cleanest language being used in that control room. Carson, ever the professional, laughed politely while discreetly signaling the band. Doc Severinsen understood immediately and began playing, but Hackett raised his voice, determined to finish his story like a man driving toward a cliff with the accelerator floored. "I think we need to wrap this up, buddy," Carson said, that legendary composure starting to crack. "I'm just getting warmed up, Johnny," Hackett boomed, launching into another off-color anecdote involving a nun and a sailor that absolutely could not, under any circumstances, continue. Carson's face remained pleasant for viewers, but his knuckles whitened around his pencil, the telltale sign that staff recognized as imminent eruption. The commercial break couldn't arrive fast enough. Backstage, Carson confronted network censors with barely controlled fury. 3 FCC violations in 4 minutes. That's a record even for us. The censors looked grim. The phones are already lighting up. Carson made his decision before he even removed his makeup. Buddy Hackett goes on the list, permanently. NBC switchboards logged 312 complaint calls that night, the second highest in Tonight Show history. Affiliate stations in the Midwest threatened to delay the program if standards continued deteriorating. Carson, who prided himself on sophisticated adult humor that stopped short of vulgarity, took those complaints personally. Head writer Raymond Siller recalled, "Johnny never censored his guests. He believed in creative freedom, but Buddy crossed into territory that wasn't just pushing boundaries, it was dynamiting them." The situation worsened when newspapers reported Hackett's intoxicated performance. Sponsors demanded explanations. NBC executives called emergency meetings. And Carson, who typically avoided network politics like the plague, made a rare appearance at the conference table. "Gentlemen," he began, and everyone in that room knew serious business was about to go down. "I've hosted this show for 14 years without incident. Last night wasn't a miscalculation. It was a complete breakdown. Mr. Hackett won't return during my tenure." That word, tenure, silenced every executive present. Carson's contract negotiations were approaching, and his leverage remained absolutely untouchable. If banning Hackett preserved Carson's relationship with NBC, then Hackett would stay banned forever. The ban remained intact for 15 years. When Carson approached retirement,
after years of speculation, rumors, cocktail party conversations, and just plain old gossip, Johnny Carson has finally made it official. He is not going to stay on television forever.
Hackett's agent pleaded for one final appearance, some kind of redemption arc. Johnny's response was simply, "Some bombs can't be diffused twice." Hackett learned about his exile through Hollywood channels, initially dismissive because surely Johnny couldn't stay mad forever, right? Wrong. When subsequent bookings on Merv Griffin and Mike Douglas materialized, while Tonight Show invitations vanished completely, Hackett finally understood that his Tonight Show career had ended that drunken night in 1976, and no amount of apologies would resurrect it. Number 4. Frank Sinatra. If threatening Carson physically earned a ban, and bringing chaos disguised as pets earned a ban, and violating FCC regulations earned a ban, then surely being Frank Sinatra, actual legend, chairman of the board.
If you recall, the last time I did the show, I had on as one of my guests, Frank Sinatra.
Would provide some immunity, right? Absolutely wrong. Sinatra's 1975 booking came with a 3-page rider that raised eyebrows throughout Studio One. Among the demands, pre-approval of all questions, camera angles limited to his good side, and the stipulation that Carson must stand when Sinatra entered, like Sinatra was royalty visiting peasant television. Producer Fred de Cordova delivered the list to Carson, who scanned it silently, then dropped it directly in his wastebasket. "Tell Frank we're happy to have him without conditions." Sinatra's team balked. Eventually, they reached a compromise. No pre-approved questions, but Carson would preview topics. The appearance seemed set until rehearsal, when Sinatra's manager interrupted Carson's monologue practice. "Mr. Sinatra would like to enter from stage left, not right." Carson looked up from his cards. "We always bring guests from the right. The cameras are set up." "Mr. Sinatra insists." Carson set down his pencil with deliberate care. "Does Mr. Sinatra run this show now?" The standoff escalated faster than anyone anticipated when Sinatra himself arrived, demanding that Carson's dressing room be vacated for his use, because apparently Frank Sinatra needed the host's personal space. Johnny's patience, which had been stretched thin, finally snapped completely. "This isn't the Sands, and I'm not opening for him," Carson told producers, his voice cold as winter. "Either he plays by our rules, or he doesn't play." Sinatra departed without appearing, his entourage trailing behind him like ducklings following a very angry duck. Carson watched from his office window, then made a decisive call to NBC executives that would become legendary. The Tonight Show doesn't accommodate divas, even legendary ones. Sinatra never received another invitation. Years later, when someone finally worked up the courage to ask Carson about the ban, he simply replied, "Some stars forget. The television requires collaboration, not coronation." What made the Sinatra situation particularly uncomfortable was their history. Carson idolized Sinatra as a performer, often citing him as the epitome of showmanship. Photos in Carson's office showed them golfing together in Palm Springs during the 60s. They'd been friends, but that friendship couldn't overcome professional principles, and Carson's message was clear. Nobody, not even Frank Sinatra, was bigger than The Tonight Show. Studio coordinator Michael Berry witnessed the confrontation between Carson's team and Sinatra's entourage. Frank brought 8 people, bodyguards, managers, even a personal lighting director. They started rearranging our set without permission. When Fred de Cordova objected, one of Frank's guys said, "Do you know who he is?" Fred replied, "Do you know whose show this is?" That exchange exposed everything. The collision between old Hollywood, where stars dictated terms, and television's structured environment, where Carson held absolute power. Sinatra, accustomed to reverence in nightclubs and recording studios, miscalculated Carson's position within NBC's ecosystem. Carson's decision shocked network executives who valued Sinatra's ratings potential. They attempted mediation, suggesting Carson reconsider. His response became legend among NBC staff. "I'll meet Frank halfway. He can approve his own questions on someone else's show."
I have not met my next guest. I'm looking forward to talking with him. His name is Frank.
The standoff created ripples throughout the entertainment industry. Stars with reputations for difficult behavior received pre-appearance warnings from their managers. "Don't pull a Sinatra." The phrase entered Hollywood vernacular as shorthand for career-damaging hubris, and it stuck for decades. Number 5. Shelley Winters. But you know what's worse than demanding special treatment? Monopolizing conversation like you're the only person in the room. Enter Shelley Winters, who learned that Carson's patience for spotlight thieves was exactly 0. Winters first appeared on Tonight in 1965, charming viewers with Hollywood tales from the Golden Age.
Unpredictable. It's open house tonight. Would you welcome Shelley Winters?
By 1978, her return visits became increasingly problematic as she developed a habit Carson absolutely couldn't tolerate: interrupting other guests like they were background noise in her personal radio show. During a panel segment featuring Richard Pryor and Angie Dickinson, 2 legitimate stars, Winters repeatedly redirected every conversation to herself. When Pryor began describing a new film project, Winters cut in without hesitation. "That reminds me of when I worked with Montgomery Clift." Carson tried gentle redirection, his default setting. "We'll get back to you, Shelley, but let's hear Richard finish." Winters continued regardless. "Monty told me directors just don't understand actors today." Carson's pencil started tapping rapidly against his desk, that silent signal of growing irritation that every staff member recognized. By the 3rd interruption, even the audience grew restless. During commercial, Carson whispered something to Winters, who nodded apologetically.
You and Miss Winters have never worked together.
No, we haven't.
Didn't you used to be under contract at RKO? I'm sorry.
The piece lasted exactly 30 seconds. When Dickinson described a challenging scene from her latest project, Winters interjected again, "I won 2 Oscars for scenes just like that." Carson's patience snapped like a dry twig. "Yes, you've mentioned your Oscars 4 times tonight. I believe we're all aware of them." The audience gasped. You could hear the collective intake of breath across that studio. Winters' face flushed crimson. The remainder of the segment proceeded in awkward starts and stops, everyone walking on eggshells. And as credits rolled, Carson walked off set without his customary goodbyes to guests. That alone told everyone everything they needed to know. The next morning, Carson called the booking department with instructions that were clear and final. Shelley Winters gets removed from rotation. I won't host the Shelley Show disguised as The Tonight Show. Her name never appeared on the guest list again. When someone asked Carson years later about repeat guests, he responded cryptically, "The best conversationalists know when to listen." Tonight, show staff had nicknamed Winters the Conversation Steamroller, long before her final appearance. But her interruptions weren't merely annoying. They destroyed the rhythm Carson meticulously cultivated. Segment producer Jeff Sotkin recalled, Johnny orchestrated conversations like symphonies. He knew exactly when to let guests shine and when to redirect. Shelley wasn't just playing her own instrument, she was crashing cymbals during everyone else's solos. The tension extended beyond that final broadcast. Audience coordinator Betty Talmadge remembered, Johnny normally visited guests in their dressing rooms after difficult segments, smoothing ruffled feathers. With Shelley, he just walked straight to his office and shut the door. That's when we knew she wasn't coming back. Winters apparently remained oblivious to her exile's permanence. Her publicist continued submitting appearance requests tied to film releases and book publications.
I mean, my book isn't just naming, it's about romance, about the way Hollywood was in the late 40s and 50s.
Each received the same response. Ms. Winters doesn't align with our current booking needs. Only after 6 rejected attempts did Winters reportedly understand her Tonight Show career had concluded. The situation created an unexpected industry ripple effect. Talk show producers began assessing guests for Winters syndrome, the tendency to monopolize conversation regardless of format. Green room instructions at competing programs included specific guidelines. This is a panel discussion. All guests receive equal time. Talent coordinators credited Carson with establishing a standard that benefited the entire industry, proving that bands can sometimes serve the greater good. Number 6. Charles Grodin. Now, here's where things get complicated, because sometimes the line between performance and reality gets blurred, and when that happens on The Tonight Show, careers die. Charles Grodin's initial appearances showcased his deadpan comedy.
He wrote a very entertaining memoir titled It Would Be Nice to Welcome Mr. Charles Grodin,
purposefully antagonizing Carson with feigned hostility. The bit worked brilliantly. Audiences enjoyed the tension, and Carson appreciated the change of pace from standard celebrity promotion. "You seem particularly unprepared tonight," Grodin needled during a 1977 visit. Carson played along perfectly. "And yet, I still make more than you." Everyone laughed. It was perfect comedy. The dynamic shifted dramatically in 1990 when Grodin arrived genuinely agitated about a critical review Carson had given his latest film.
They're both movies. Neither one are great movies, so the analogy was comparing that.
What started as their usual routine quickly soured into something ugly and real. "Do you actually watch the movies you criticize?" Grodin snapped, veins visible in his neck. Carson's smile tightened. "Do you actually rehearse the movies you make?" The audience's nervous laughter couldn't disguise the genuine tension crackling across that stage. Grodin pushed harder, crossing from comedy into personal attack. 15 years in this chair, and you still can't conduct a decent interview. Carson's eyes narrowed, his voice dropping to that dangerous register. 30 years in Hollywood, and you're still in supporting roles. The gloves were completely off now. Grodin launched into a critique of Carson's interview technique, while Johnny retreated into cold silence, his pencil snapping between his fingers. When the segment mercifully ended, Carson didn't shake Grodin's hand, an unprecedented breach of his hosting protocol that everyone noticed. Backstage, producer Peter Lassily found Carson seething. "That wasn't a bit. He came gunning for me." "We should cancel tomorrow's booking," Lassily suggested. "Cancel all of them," Carson replied. "Forever." Studio executives implemented the ban immediately, and Grodin discovered his exile when subsequent booking requests met absolute silence. The lesson echoed throughout the industry. Carson could take a joke, but genuine disrespect earned permanent banishment. What complicated the Grodin situation was their history of playful antagonism. Viewers had come to expect their verbal sparring, Grodin playing the critic, Carson the unflappable host. The formula succeeded because both men understood the unspoken boundaries. That night, Grodin crossed from performance into genuine hostility. Director Bobby Quinn recalled, "The audience couldn't necessarily distinguish the difference, but Johnny could. There's teasing for entertainment, and there's trying to humiliate someone on their own show. Grodin crossed that line." Carson's typical post-show routine included reviewing noteworthy segments with producers. That night, he skipped the session entirely, retreating to his office with a scotch, behavior that staff recognized as extreme agitation. By morning, Carson had developed a new studio policy. Guests who made personal attacks during interviews wouldn't return. Period. Grodin initially believed the booking silence was temporary, just Carson cooling off. His manager made inquiries, receiving non-committal responses. Only after 6 months without contact did Grodin realize the magnitude of his misstep. He sent a handwritten apology letter that Carson never acknowledged. Years later, when Larry King asked Grodin about the incident, he responded cryptically, "Sometimes improvisation takes you places you never intended to go." Industry insiders noted the career impact immediately. Grodin's film work continued.
Grodin could make people laugh, even when they weren't expecting to, with deadpan drollery in such films as 1993's Dave.
But his talk show visibility diminished significantly. Without Tonight Show appearances, his public profile gradually faded. The lesson wasn't lost on other celebrities. Even established bits had boundaries, and Carson alone determined where they lay. Number 7. Tom Snyder. But the final story might be the coldest of all, because it involves not a guest, but a colleague. Someone within NBC's own family who learned that proximity to power doesn't equal immunity from consequences. When NBC expanded late-night programming in 1973, executives assured Carson that Tom Snyder's Tomorrow Show would complement, not compete with, Tonight. Carson welcomed the addition, even recommending potential guests for Snyder's debut week. That collegial relationship lasted precisely 18 months before everything fell apart. The trouble began when Snyder started booking guests immediately after their Tonight Show appearances, offering them a second platform that often contradicted statements made on Carson's couch. Publicists loved the double exposure. Carson saw it as undermining his program's exclusivity. The situation deteriorated when Snyder began regularly appearing on Merv Griffin's competing talk show.
We'll be right back with Merv Griffin of TV and all kinds of stuff.
Discussing NBC's late-night strategy in what Carson viewed as inappropriate detail, airing internal family business to the competition. After Snyder revealed specifics about Tonight Show booking policies during a Griffin interview, Carson summoned NBC executives. Either he represents this network exclusively, or he doesn't represent my lead-in. Network president Herb Schlosser attempted diplomacy. Tom's just building his profile. Not with my credibility, Carson replied, and that was that. The final straw came during a television critics press tour when Snyder joked, "Johnny gets the stars, I get the interesting people." The quote appeared in TV Guide's coverage, reportedly causing Carson to throw the magazine across his office. That week, Carson implemented what staff called the Snyder blackout. Tom's name would never be mentioned on Tonight. His show would never be promoted during Carson's broadcast. And most significantly, Carson would never appear on Tomorrow despite repeated network requests. The ban created awkward programming continuity. NBC's late-night block featured Carson seamlessly transitioning to Snyder without acknowledgement, as though Tomorrow materialized from thin air rather than careful network planning. When Snyder secured major exclusive interviews, Tonight, producers received instructions to avoid all related topics in Carson's monologue. It was like working with divorced parents who refused to acknowledge each other's existence, recalled NBC programmer Warren Littlefield. Johnny never criticized Tom publicly, but his silence communicated volumes. The Cold War continued until Snyder's departure from NBC in 1982. Even during farewell celebrations, Carson declined participation. His only comment came during a staff meeting. Professional courtesy is reciprocal. When it's absent in one direction, don't expect it from the other. In the world of late-night television, one man quietly held more power than any agent, studio, or publicist. He controlled who America saw, who they laughed at, and who they remembered. The bans, the blacklists, the unspoken rules, they weren't just moments of discipline. They were lessons in influence, control, and the fragility of fame. But for every story we've uncovered, there are others still locked behind studio doors, lost in the shadows of television history. The real question is this: how many careers, scandals, and secrets never made it to air? And what does that tell us about the power we rarely see, but always feel? The Tonight Show ended decades ago, but the kingdom Johnny Carson built still casts a long, silent shadow. Are we ready to see what else lies behind the curtain?